A few months ago, I was in conversation with someone who significantly altered the political course of this country. They made public some things which others would sooner have kept hidden, thereby causing political careers and the government of the day to collapse. As they talked about this incident, it became clear to me that this was far from being an act of petty revenge or whistleblowing aimed at enhancing the reputation of the whistleblower. The person in question had already reached the pinnacle of their chosen career and had been publicly honoured for it. What they were doing was an act of courage. Even though this person was high in the pecking order, as they had voiced what had otherwise been unspeakable, they were still liable to be abused in the media and by members of the public. I'm sure many of us here this evening have had the experience of seeing their names in print or online in an unfavourable context. It is never pleasant. Even ducks' backs get wet at times. There was an act of courage shown in the public disclosure of this information. But there's more. The day after I'd had this conversation, I was sitting in a Quaker meeting for worship. For those of you unfamiliar with the Quakers, this consists of the group sitting in silence until someone is moved to speak. In this hour-long meeting, no one was moved to speak, but the silence allowed me to reflect on the previous evening's conversation. And I suddenly realised there was another form of courage involved, that being the courage needed to confront oneself honestly. Many of us hold beliefs and opinions that we never question. Some of them may be relatively trivial, old wives' tales we've grown up with, like holding your breath for 10 seconds will cure hiccups. But others may be more pernicious, such as believing that it's okay to turn a blind eye to certain things, to cut corners in some circumstances, or to be economical with the truth on occasion. These habits and beliefs may be ingrained and we hardly ever consider them or question them. And for the person with whom I'd had the conversation above, the ability and willingness to wink or turn a blind eye to irregularities was almost part of the job description. But it seems at this point they took the time to listen to a part of themselves that usually remains silent, to note it, and to accept what it was telling them before acting on it. And here I'd like to read something from the first book of Kings in the Old Testament of the Bible, using the word Yahweh to describe the Lord. Behold, Yahweh passed by, and a great and strong wind tore the mountains and broke in pieces the rocks before Yahweh. But Yahweh was not in the wind. After the wind there was an earthquake, but Yahweh was not in the earthquake. After the earthquake a fire passed, but Yahweh was not in the fire. After the fire, there was a still, small voice. And it was the still, small voice that contained Yahweh. We may choose to see it as the voice of God, but some may call it conscience or the subconscious. But this still, small voice, whatever label we choose to put on it, is a part of all of us, if we care to listen to it. And for a minute or so, that's what I'd like us to do, to listen to the still, small voice inside us, and to take heed of what it is telling us we need to change in ourselves as we prepare ourselves to discuss and create changes for the benefit of our residents. Let us now keep silence for a short while and listen.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Ashton. And good evening formally, everyone. We can start our meeting. Thank you. Thank you. Can I move to item 1 then and ask you if there are any apologies for absence?
Thank you, Chair. Apologies for absence have been received from councillors S. Wilcox, Ho, Harvey Coggins, Benavicius, Robertson and S. Taylor.
Thank you very much. Have there been any declarations of interest? Current Councillor Woodward.
Chair, can I declare an interest in the Local Government Association as I'm a peer member? Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. There's someone. The only one. You want? Yeah, I think Councillor. The same Councillor Wilcox.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Thank you very much. And Councillor Benyon.
Well, I better declare an interest in the motion that I'm involved in, which is protecting British family farms.
Okay. Thank you.
I
I think you're supposed to stand up. People are complaining.
Well, I will stand up and declare that interest because it is quite an obvious one.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So right, the LJ. That's the all right. Councillor Marshall.
I think following on from what Councillor Benyon's just said, whilst I don't farm, a lot of my friends, a lot of my business associates do. And I think it's only fair that I perhaps register an interest that I am intrinsically involved in the farming community. Thank you.
I don't know quite what that means. Yeah, but anyway, yeah, they know those interests are noted. Okay, right. We come to agenda item 3. So can I move that the minutes of the meeting can be approved as a correct record? Are there any urgent items of correction? No. No, I see no raised hands, so the minutes are approved. Okay. Yeah, that's fine. No, you don't have to raise your hand. This agenda item 4 is our announcements. There is a list of the events that the chair and vice chair and I have attended since the last meeting, an interesting and rewarding variety of community, civic and memorial events. And I will just mention one, which was the Places of Welcome celebration at the Garrick Theatre on the 22nd of November, just because I know we like to be very proud of ourselves or our associates. And there are apparently 800 places of welcome in the country. 200 of those are in the Diocese of Lichfield. I mean, the diocese is bigger even than the county, but it's still a great achievement. And the Garrick Theatre is the only theatre that apparently runs a place of welcome, you know, for people who want to keep warm, meet people and so on. So I'll just indulge myself with that remark as chair's announcements. But then we can move rapidly on to, oh, sorry, Councillor.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I just wanted to thank you for sharing your list of events and ask you the question that going forward, do you have any plans to visit the wider area of the district and in particular to support the rural communities and also, of course, a very important farming communities as well?
Well, I have, yes, and then I could declare an interest on a farming motion, can't I, if I am. I go everywhere that I've been invited to, and then I occasionally invite myself to Burntwood. I've been to, well, I went to the volunteer, they never invite me either, but I hope to go to Elford, where I met at the Burntwood Volunteer Fair, a dementia organisation in Elford. I'll go anywhere I'm invited, actually, but I have not been invited. I went to a farming event. I should have declared an interest. I went to a farming event in my first year as chair, which was in the district, but it was actually the Leicestershire Young Farmers Meeting in Wigington, I'm going to say. So I have actually been to a farming event. Then I shall, look forward to the motion. Thank you. No long words in that one. Item 5 is the report of the Leader of the Council on Cabinet decisions.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good evening, everybody. Report to the Leader of the Council. This is from Cabinet on the 3rd of December and Cabinet member decisions. I'll take them one by one. First of all, 3rd December 2024, the Greenway project. Second is
Yeah, there's a do you want to take the questions as they come? Yeah, or the points? Yeah, Councillor Braga.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to say, I mean, I understand about the liability, the delay, and about understanding the liabilities of looking after the physical structures. But once we have that signed, what is the sort of timescale between having that signed to the public and then having a path where the tracks are covered and so there's a decent footway and cycleway along it? How long is that phase of the project going to be?
Thank you, Councillor Braga. The work that Back the Track are doing has been tremendous in terms of clearing the disused railway line, and are almost at a point now where one will be able to walk down the line once the lease is secured. In terms of how long that then takes to get it to a point where the track is either removed or entirely covered, and where you might be able to call it an actual pathway, we simply don't know. That is a multi-year project that if it's anything to go by the previous section of track that the same team have done, that has taken them 6 years or so to get it to a point where Sustrans are now able to get involved and do that upgrade to get it to a cycle path. But I think the way that we've undertaken this work by the council doing the bit that we can do in terms of securing the lease, and then allowing the community group to crack on and do the work that they're so passionate about, is absolutely the right way. It's our community power strategy in action. Sometimes that does mean that we need to stay out of the way and let community groups get on with it in their own time. That'll certainly be the case with the Greenway. But I think certainly, really importantly, from March next year, the public will have access once that lease is sorted and the foliage is cleared.
Okay, you need to get up again, I think.
Yes. Number 2, Lichfield District 2050 Strategy Q2 Performance Report.
Councillor Norman.
In there, what the members were commenting on, there's nothing there to propose to the cabinet. The leader was conscientiously the only group needs to meet the day before anyway. It would have heard it was there. So I've marked it with people on record to really to say that I did email the cabinet members with the views of the only street documentary. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Okay. Oh, let's put the mic on.
We heard you perfectly, thank you. Councillor Pullen.
Thank you, Chair. And of course, we thank Councillor Norman and his committee for the feedback they do give to Cabinet, whether that's in writing or verbally, as we have done, of course. Number 3, mini nature reserves.
Oh my gosh. Councillor Woodward, Councillor Ball and Councillor Taylor. They're going to say make different points. I'm sure.
Thanks, Chair. Just on 3.2, where the decision is to be delegated to the Cabinet Member for Operational Services, Parks and Waste, the relevant Director and the Monitoring Officer. Can I ask that the Shadow Cabinet Member is also included in those discussions, and also, where appropriate, the specific ward members in view of the possible impact on their wards? Thanks, Chair.
Okay. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So for absolute clarity, entirely agree with Councillor Woodward. The ward members and the shadow should absolutely be consulted. Obviously, the delegation is to the individuals contained within there. We need some very clear lines of accountability. But in terms of consultation, I'd fully expect them to consult with the individuals that you just named there.
Councillor Ball.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'm pleased to see these moves towards biodiversity. I'm also pleased to let the leader know that I met a week or two back with James Porter and Marvin Minto Simpson, 2 of our excellent staff working on this kind of thing, on 2 sites in my ward of Kerborough, and they've identified those as possible sites in the future, and I would hope that they would get the same support from Cabinet as these sites at Redwood Park and Bigwood Park have had. Thank you.
Let's have Councillor Taylor then. If you...
In Redwood Park in the mini nature reserve, and I'm grateful for the cabinet and the leaders of the council for paying attention to this park. I think in the 2 years that I've been on the council, this is the first time I've heard Redwood Park mentioned in the council building, and it's the first time I've been aware of people of the council spending money on Redwood Park. I did post the announcement of this mini nature reserve to Spotted on Facebook, and despite the usual comments back on Spotted, the confidence in the outcomes of this particular activity is not high. If it was an active Redwood Park itself, a very little attention over the last decade or so. There is a mini wood, a mini forest planted at the top, which was, I believe, fenced off, planted, and then abandoned, and it's not seen much attention since that happened. So I would be grateful if the cabinet could confirm that this will be followed through for the full 40 years of the lease, and also to explore that the cabinet could look at further projects on Redwood Park that might improve that and bring us to the standard of the other parks in the district. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Taylor, for your positive comments about the work we're doing in Redwood Park. I would say we are actively involved in working with Platinum Boxing, who are a tenant, obviously, of the building within Redwood Park. We worked very proactively with Severn Trent, who were responsible for the planting of the mini forest in Redwood Park a year or so ago. And of course, we would want to make sure we hold them to account for continuing their work in developing those mini forests. The work that James Porter and his team are doing in terms of creating these mini nature reserves and ensuring their longevity over the next 40 years, we have a vested interest in as a council, and of course we'll continue to monitor that for that full duration.
You need to the next item.
Thanks, Chair. Number 4, Money Matters 2024-2025. And number 5, calculation of business rates 2025-2026. Number 6, the Lichfield District Design Code supplementary.
That's another item, isn't it?
That is at item 13, I believe, in the agenda. Yes, Chair, we can happy to deal with any questions there. That concludes the cabinet agenda, and then on to cabinet members.
Sorry, Councillor Ashton, you had the design code comes up again. Yeah, but a distinct item. So you're right. Yeah.
On to cabinet member decisions. Number 7, delivering temporary accommodation for vulnerable adults and families.
Councillor Ray.
Yeah. Yes, thank you. I just want to echo strong support for this policy and what the council's doing here. Homelessness, rough sleeping, it's a shame on our society in a modern country like ours, and that there's not enough affordable housing for all. And as a council, we need to do what we can when the system fails, and this is an example of that. And I suppose as a supplementary point, I'd just like the council to continue along those lines with thinking, because there are other areas of the housing market, whether it's social housing, as opposed to those who are in crisis. It's just providing more social and affordable housing to the council, into our community. So it's the right decision, and fully support it.
Section 8.
Thank you.
Item 8.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Ray, for your comments there. And absolutely, we should step in where the market fails, and only when the market fails. The move to delivering temporary accommodation, I think, is the first step towards that. If there are other areas where the council can step in where the market is unable to do so, then of course we'd want to look at doing that in the future, and I'd welcome your input into helping us shape that in future months. Number 8 is allocation of section 106 funds, Kings Bromley.
Right. You're going to.
I very much welcome this within my ward, investment going into the ward of Armitage with Handsacre and Kings Bromley. I know that the parish council there have worked very, very hard, and I'm hoping that this will obviously refurbish their war memorial, and so I very much welcome the decision. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cox. Number 9 is to award a contract for the construction of a 3G pitch at Stitchbrook Park.
Councillor Woodward.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. The 3G pitch development there, I just wonder whether the Cabinet has made any assessment of the environmental impacts of 3G pitches, in view of the fact that we're going to be debating later on our ambition to champion action against climate change and the best environmental standards. Has research been done? Because there are concerns from environmentalists about, you know, the heat generated from 3G pitches, the fact that it reduces biodiversity in the immediate area, and, you know, concerns about microplastics that can leak into the watercourses. So 3G pitches aren't deemed to be the most environmentally friendly. And I just wonder whether you've made any assessment of that. Thanks, Chair.
Councillor Woodward, I'm unaware of any specific assessments that have been made. We may very well have done so. It's just outside of my knowledge. I'm happy to. Councillor Norman is telling me no, they haven't been made. That's if he believes they haven't, then fine. I think I would say the environmental benefits or disbenefits of 3G pitches are probably hotly debated in terms of the frequency that you can use a 3G pitch, for instance, make it much more available for local residents to use. Water conservation, they need less watering, which is always a benefit. They don't need cutting, which adds to the benefit there. You don't need to put any weed killer, herbicides, pesticides onto it. There are benefits to the environment of 3G pitches as well as disbenefits.
Thank you. It's all right with you. Right. Okay. Item 10.
Oh, item 10, that's me, isn't it?
Yeah.
Item 10 to award a contract for the finance management system.
Yeah.
And number 11, purchase of temporary accommodation unit to support vulnerable households.
That's lovely.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. Right, we come to item 6, the minutes of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. So I can call on Councillor Norman.
Thank you, Chair. I move that the proceedings of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee meeting held on the 2nd of October, not the 2nd of December, 2024 be received.
Do we have a seconder for that? Okay, thank you, Councillor Hill. Right, so you're going to take us through them.
Yes, minute number 20, the apologies for absence, 21 declarations of interest, 22 minutes of the previous meeting, 23 health matters, 24 was the medium-term financial strategy, and there's quite a few bullet points over the next page, and there is a little typo, which obviously I missed because I get to see the draft minutes. Almost at the bottom, members praise the ideas for engagement and compliment the videos of council. That should have been a compliment with an E, but I think it's a good excuse because later on there's lots of compliments in there in the report, so I don't blame that being missed, not by me, but by the typists. 25 notes from task groups, 26 complaints, MP Freedom of Information Inquiries Report 23 to 2024. 27 is the local plan issues and options consultation. 28 infrastructure funding statement. 29 is the LWMTS business plan annual accounts. And on the end of that, the last bullet point, in fact, there is a word that's not correct there. It says members queried that the initial setup of the company was to provide housing for sale. Yet housing hasn't been debriefed. It should be deferred. Again, I missed that on the draft minutes, so and myself to blame. And then 30 is the police community engagement strategy.
Yeah.
And then
at this point, I think, are you going to wait? Councillor Ball has a point, I think, on this. Yeah, we're still on 29.
Sorry, forgot the microphone. Thank you. Yeah, the middle bullet point there, having opposition members and having a more inclusive approach to the directors of the LWMTS. That is coming again. It's mentioned in the audit committee. There certainly seemed to be an intention to do that, and that was mentioned last council meeting. I'm wondering what progress is being made to actually make that happen, please.
There's been no progress on my part, but we'll chase it up. I'm sure it'll be pushing it an open door, hopefully following those minutes and the reference to the audit committee report. 30 is still the police community engagement strategy, and 31 the work programme. Those are my.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I think we can take those minutes as received and adopted. No? Well, with the corrections to. Yep, okay, I think so. Item 7 is minutes of the planning committee. So can I call on Councillor Ashton?
Thank you, Chair. I move that the proceedings of the Plan Committee meetings held 30th of September 2024, 28th of October 2024 and 18th of November 2024 be received and where necessary approved and adopted.
Okay, and I think Councillor Salter is going to thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. And we take those minutes by page number. So we're on page 29.
29. I have 2 points I would like to make.
Oh, right, okay.
On the 30th of September, the minutes for the 30th of September, Councillor Marshall's name was misspelt. Should be corrected.
Okay.
And on the 28th of October, Councillor Checkland had presented his apologies earlier at the September meeting, and his apology is not noted on the minutes. We will move to have these corrected at the next meeting of the Planning Committee.
Thank you very much. So page 29, we put an L onto Marshall. There's planning applications and then enforcement. Any? No? 28th of October, we've added Councillor Checkland's apologies, and there was land at Cricket Lane. Any short reading? No. Page 33, the 18th of November. No. Okay, I think that's it. Thank you very much. Can we take those minutes as approved and adopted? Thank you. Received and adopted. Item 8 then is the minutes of the audit committee. Call on Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Chair. Before I move these minutes, can I take a moment just to thank Ian Edwards, our ICT manager, and Kerry Dove, our Chief Operating Officer, for attending the meeting on September and being the first of the managers that we've called in to ask to talk to the outstanding audit recommendations. I hope they found the process reasonably uncombative and collegiate, and they can push that back to other managers that we may call on for future meetings. That said, I move that the proceedings of the audit committee meetings held on September 2024 and 26th of November 2024 be received and where necessary approved and adopted.
Okay, thank you. Can we have a seconder for those? Councillor Marshall.
Yes, Chair, I'm more than happy to second those minutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And then let's take by minute number. Okay, but there's apology on the 18th of September. Apologies, declarations of interest, minutes, and the outstanding audit recommendations, exclusion of press and then polling card print over the page 17 and 18, fraud. Polling card printing investigation report. The annual report of the data put, yeah, Councillor Woodward and then Councillor.
Thanks, Chair. Just in relation to minute 19, just to confirm that group leaders were informed about GDPR training sessions for their members of their group, and numerous members have now taken the GDPR training, but I just want to make a comment about the difficulties that members have in undertaking this training in comparison to employees. Employees generally might well be situated in these offices, or at least have access to these offices. Members have very different setups in terms of their IT facilities. They have very different access to the internet depending on where they live. And although the login has been made slightly easier, more user friendly, as it says in the minutes, the training session itself is not at all user friendly. I've passed, Chair. I'm just confirming that I passed my GDPR training, and numbers have, but it is not an easy or user-friendly training session. Members got some criticism a while ago about the relatively low percentage of members having completed their GDPR training. It might well be, for example, that many of the members who haven't done the LDC training have done training for their day jobs and so on. I just want to make a plea, please, to understand that members don't have the same facilities in terms of IT, hardware, access to the internet and so on, and that perhaps officers take this away and consider how they might facilitate GDPR training for those members who find difficulty accessing the ones that we've got, perhaps with a session here in the council offices.
Right.
Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much. Councillor Whitehouse and then Councillor Ray.
Thank you, Chair. It's just a point of correction on 19. I think there's a typo when it says Ian Edward and then presented. It just needs to be
Oh,
corrected.
right, yes, but that's very well spotted.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Ray.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow on what Councillor Woodward said, that with the GDPR training, it's very important, and a lot of us have done it in this room. But through my work and a lot of other people's work, we have GDPR training. It wasn't a user-friendly, easy training system, and I just suppose it's a question of whatever company we use to provide that online training. Maybe we just need to have a review of that, because it's hard, and it went on. It went on for a while, and it just wasn't user friendly.
Okay, thank you. Then we have item 20 for this first meeting is the statement of accounts. Item 21 was the audit findings report for Lichfield District Council 23-24. Then there was the work programme and records of a meeting with auditors. We then come to the meeting of the 28th of November, routine things, then the annual report of LWMTS, the mid-year treasury management, item 29. So, Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Sorry, I did raise my hand for item 28.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
I am partway through approving these minutes as chair of the committee, and I just think that final bullet point isn't strong enough for the discussion that we had. The recommended number of board members for a trading company owned by a district council of this sort of size is between 5 and 10, and it is recommended that there are exec members with expertise in the industries in which that body trades. So we have two main trading industries within LWMTS, which would suggest we need at least 2 non-exec members. There would therefore also be room for a bigger political makeup of this board, and I'm not sure that the italic item with about a shareholders board, I'm not sure that meets that requirement. Thank you.
Thank you. So can you, Councillor Pullen wants to respond.
Chair, if I could just make a general point, and this isn't directly aimed at Councillor Taylor there, but I think if minutes of a report that are coming to the council do not accurately reflect the context of that meeting, it is on the chair of that committee or whoever is signing off those minutes to ensure that it does accurately reflect that. And I think that's an issue of accountability that perhaps we all have, and particularly as we've moved to a state where there are chairs from different parties across the chamber, to ensure that the chairs of those committees have actual sign off of those minutes. It's on us as leaders of or chairs of committees. If you're not happy with those minutes, do not sign them off. Only allow them to come to this meeting once you are happy with those minutes. That should be your sign off. And I say that's not directly aimed at Councillor Taylor, but let's just make sure it does actually.
Yeah,
reflect
okay. There's also questions of timing, aren't there? But perhaps we can. The issue can be discussed for future meetings.
Chair, let me say, if there's an issue of timing, then don't allow that paper to come to council until you are happy with it. And I say this with all love and respect for our officers who do a tremendous amount of work under a lot of pressure. If you're not happy with those minutes, do not allow them to come to a meeting if you're unhappy with them.
Well, yeah, okay, yeah, Councillor Taylor, briefly.
So just a quick point on that. They are listed on the agenda as, or at least in the chapter headings for the agenda, as draft audit minutes. So I assumed they were there as draft audit minutes. I apologise if
we can,
I apologise if I was not supposed to allow them to be on this agenda, and I will note that for future.
Yeah, okay. I think we've got. Yeah, thank you. We'll try and make sure that the minutes are as they should be, but okay, and the issue can be pursued anyway, can't it? Okay, thank you. So yeah, that was that was number 28. Item 29, 30 internal audit progress report. My favourite, a risk management update. Councillor Ray. Good.
Only because your favourite, Chair. I just wanted to speak to the second bullet point, and really probably point for the leader and me and the sort of chief executive, probably the point that was made by the committee about the management of the major projects. We've got major projects on. There's going to be more involvement as we go forward. Really appreciate the work and that our projects team does, but I guess it's just a point that we need to be aware and monitor the resource in that team so that we can ensure that they are properly and professionally delivered going forward.
Yeah, it is also at the end, if I can say, I mean, Resvold is revolt. There's a spelling mistake, but which hasn't been picked up by anybody. But that the members of the major projects team are coming to the next audit committee. Yeah, was that what you were going to say? Yeah, so I think, yeah, that seems to be taken care of. Councillor Pullen.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate this isn't a point in the agenda to be asking me questions, but if it helps Councillor Ray and give him some assurance, the major projects team are undergoing a process at the moment to augment their team with an additional team member for that very reason that he articulates. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Item 32 is the REPA reports, policy and monitoring. Councillor Woodward is yawning, which I don't know what REPA stands for, to my shame, so I think it might be really. Then the auditor's annual report and the work programme. Okay, well, thank you very much. Can we take these minutes then as received and adopted, and thank the committee for all their hard work. Thank you. Right. Agenda item 9 is the minutes of the Members' Standards Committee. So can I call on Councillor John Smith?
Thank you, Chair. I move that the proceedings of the Member Standards Committee meeting held on the 30th of October 2024 be received and, where necessary, approved and adopted.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder? Councillor. Thank you very much. And remember, take it minute by minute, but the new model code, or the proposed new model code of conduct is going to be discussed separately. So this was apologies for absence, declarations of interest, and the terms of reference, and then the code of conduct. And we also, I know that's a committee, so can we take those minutes as received and adopted?
Aye.
Yeah. Okay, the next one then is the minutes of the Regulatory and Licensing Committee. And can I call on of the 19th November, I think, and can I call on Councillor Evans? And can we have a seconder, Councillor? Thank you very much. So this is by minute number, declarations of interest 2, 3 minutes, 4 is the work programme, 5 the enforcement, 5 the enforcement policy. Councillor Braga.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'd like to thank the Chair, Councillor Evans, for arranging the extra meeting to deal with the issue around pavement licences. Many businesses in the city centre are facing additional expenditure and reduced trade as a result of the situation. And obviously we need to find a solution whereby that they can prosper and people in wheelchairs with limited mobility, vision impairments, with push chairs, etc., are able to negotiate the street safely, and that needs to be done urgently. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Item, I think that was, item 5, enforcement policy more generally. No. Item 6, amendments to the street trading consent programme. Councillor Norman.
Thank you, Chair. It's on item 6 and it's C. This is remove the requirement of food traders to have a minimum food hygiene rating of 4. If I just quote 2 lines from the 2050 strategy that we all agreed to, a confident community is a cohesive, healthy, a safe, prosperous and happy place. Another quotation I'd like to do is we understand that, quote, what did it do? We understand that people want a clean, safe and healthy environment. I congratulate the Regulatory and Licensing Committee in rejecting the recommendation to this report about removing the requirement for food traders to have a minimum food hygiene rating of 4. I'll just give you 2 quick extracts from 2 examples of food hygiene ratings and inspections in the district. One, this is just extracts from it. One, at the time of inspection, your colour-coded red chopping board, which you use for raw meat preparation, was stored in contact with your yellow chopping board, which you use for ready-to-eat food preparation. Cease this practice in order to minimise risks of cross-contamination. Another one was at the time of inspection, a dirty dustpan brush had been left in the sieve, which is used for sieving spices. Cease the practice of leaving the dustpan brush in the sieve to minimise risk of food contamination. A number of safe methods in your Safer Food, Better Business Food policy are only partially completed, and complete the following SMs: fitness for work, cloths, separating food, chilled storage and displaying chilled food, and one particularly worries me, managing food allergens information. Now that restaurant, which I hope some of you have been to, has only got a 3-star hygiene rating. And then one more I'll just refer to, which is the probe thermometer was not working, so it was not possible to carry out any temperature checks, raised at a previous inspection. High-risk food that has been prepared on site and stored in the walk-in chiller was not date labelled, raised at previous inspection. And the following items or areas were dirty: the edging of the raw meat preparation table, the edging of the table where the can opener is located, the can opener, the edging around the double sink, and 7 other items. That restaurant, which I'm sure some of you have been to, has a 1-star hygiene rating. What I can't do is what I did when I was Chair of Environmental Health Services here at Lichfield District in our first period of control there, was to show pictures. If I showed you the pictures going around, you'll all be demanding 4 or 5-star hygiene ratings. So I'm glad that the Regulatory and Licensing Committee did not take the advice of the officer. And I was a bit surprised that there wasn't a report from the Environmental Health Service in their argument for that case. So that's it. Thank you.
Okay, right. Thank you, Councillor Norman. We're all safe. Item 7. Public footpath Alroas number 36 being proposed diversion, which was approved. Hopefully it's fine. And then the polling places review. And does that come up as a separate? That's a separate item, isn't it? Yeah. Actually, it's the next item. Okay, so can we take these minutes as received and adopted? Thank you. Yeah, item 11 is the polling station review, and it's Councillor Pullen, I think, to speak on this item.
It is indeed, Chair. Thank you.
Sorry.
Anyone, this stands in my name, although I will openly admit I've had very little to do with any of its passage through the various committees. The determination of polling districts, polling places and polling stations is a determination for full council, not for the acting returning officer, which is why it's coming to this full council meeting this evening. Every 5 years, we're required to have a review of the parliamentary constituency polling stations, places and districts. This report is the outcome of that review that has taken place. It has been through Regulatory and Licensing Committee. All members were notified about the consultation that was taking place through the members' bulletin issued several months ago. And so this paper in front of you this evening is the culmination of that work that officers and the committee have done. I hereby recommend. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I've got a long list of people. Councillor Taylor, Councillor Cross, Councillor Trent. Yeah. Councillor Woodward and right, okay. Councillor Woodward, did you have a general point that you wanted? Was that okay? No. So Councillor Taylor then, and I've got you all down.
Thank you, Chair. And at the start of this, I am going to point out a minor non-pecuniary interest in Burntwood Memorial Institute. It is declared on my register of interests, and actually the point I wish to make may be to the detriment of Burntwood Memorial Institute, so I didn't feel it necessary to open the meeting with this declaration. However, I'm disappointed by the number of conclusions that simply state officers have not heard back from premises, therefore proposed remains at X. Now, one of the places it proposes to remain at is Burntwood Memorial Institute, and that would be fine. We make an extra £60 or however much it is we charge for that. But it just seems, I would propose that actually we hold this report over until the next council meeting and ask officers to make another attempt to contact these proposed venues. I know the way that a lot of these is run is part-time. Burntwood Memorial Institute, for example, if you ring outside of the hours of 9 to 11, there wouldn't be anybody to answer the phone. Emails, again, only dealt with 2 hours a day. So I would recommend that we held this over, made a second attempt to contact all of the venues whether with the polling stations were proposed moved to and bring it back at the next council. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Cross, I think was next.
Thank you, Chair. I'm concerned about the polling station that used to be or has been in Worthington Road at Fradley. It is no longer in the centre of Fradley South, so moving that is good news, but not moving it to where it's listed on this sheet on this schedule, because it's creating another problem somewhere, the same problem somewhere else. So you're going from one end of the Fradley South to the other end of Fradley South, and we will lose voters if that happens. Fradley South, the original Fradley South people will not go all the way over to where the new school is. I would like to request that that's reviewed, and the ideal place would be on Stirling Centre car park. That would be the middle, entirely the middle of Fradley South.
Thank you.
I'd like that to be reviewed, please.
That's the one on, that's the AC, the polling district AC. The top, is it the top one?
AC, yes, AC.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Trent was next, I think, perhaps.
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to speak to 3.8 of the report under key issues. There's a few lines about the use of primary schools. It says the council will seek to use alternative community venues where they exist and where they're suitable. Chair, I just wanted to welcome that statement in the report. We're told in the report that at every election, LDC receives complaints from parents where their children's school has to close. I would add that a number of residents in the ward I represent have complained on that same topic, and I can also speak from personal experience on it. It can be extremely disruptive for working families if their child's school has to close, and of course disruptive for the children themselves and their education. In terms of the review, I made representations myself 5 years ago when we had a review. I do note that there are fewer, I think the situation is better. There are fewer schools used now than there were 5 years ago. So I'm pleased to see that. However, there still are many schools on that list, I know. And I just would add 2 further points. Some commentators might say it isn't that disruptive, it's only every 2 years or so. But we know from recent years that by-elections and referenda and snap elections, we've had something of a boom time for elections in the last decade. So I would say that has a significant impact on primary schools. And just finally, the report notes that it's the decision of the head teacher whether to actually close the school, and that perhaps part of the school could remain open. I don't know if others know better than me, but my experience is the school will close. And in my view, it does have quite an impact on those primary schools. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Can I just check with somebody if we can delay this, or if there's room then for future discussions? Because I think we're going to get a whole list, aren't we, of very, very particular suggestions.
My understanding, Chair, and I will look at our acting returning officer and our governance officer here to keep me honest on this. We must, as a matter of a legal requirement, complete this review by 31st of January, which does feel like we're rather up against it, Chair. The second note on that would be to say that if there are minor adjustments or amendments to be made, that is still within the gift of the council to do beyond this review. So we've undertaken the process to undertaken the review. If that means, for instance, in the case of the Burntwood Memorial Institute, that was not available, and I know you weren't saying it wasn't, but if it wasn't, then we would just revert back to an alternative venue, and that would be within the gift of the officers to execute. Have I made anything up there or lied? Brilliant, good.
Okay, so I guess we want to, if we can have then briefly the other specific points, so we have to then vote on that one. So I think Councillor Woodward was next. There's a long list, Councillor Ennis, but
I mean, if that can be the case, that there's some minor adjustments between now and the 31st of January, I think that would be welcomed, because I particularly agree with Councillor Taylor's point about having researched potential new venues. It just seems a shame not to follow them up, even going to knock on the door of various places to see if they can be used as polling stations. I want to refer to CK, please, Chairman, on page 52. There's a proposal there that with the changes of the county council boundaries, a little part of Chase Terrace now moves into Chasetown, and so the division to a new polling district of CK1 is being proposed. I don't like the idea, though, that CK1 voters are going to be asked to go to one particular polling station for one election and then another polling station for all other elections. I think that's potentially very confusing to voters. A small number of people who live in that particular new polling district, but I think some consistency in where they go to vote would be really helpful, especially as we're all keen to increase turnout as much as possible. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much. Councillor Cox was next. I think all these will presumably be taken into account.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I'm standing in terms of the proposal with regards to Armitage with Handsacre.
BA, is it?
Yeah, BA. Currently, from what we will call the Hawksyard estate, that the village hall in Armitage with Handsacre can and has accommodated general elections as well as local. So there is a recognition that it can accommodate it. Yes, we've got an outline planning application for the power station site, but the land hasn't even been sold. And it will be a very long time, in my view, certainly not within the next 5 years, that you will see development, because until the land is sold and purchased, and then you go through the rigmarole of reserved matters, etc., on an application, this is not going to be available. If you were to switch Hawksyard to the school that is being built, there is no access other than roads. There's no foot access. So it really is status quo. They'll get in their cars anyway and go to the village in Armitage as well. So I just feel that this, in a sense, yes, I certainly think in due course we're going to need another polling station for sure. But I think this is premature because I cannot see a development within the next 5 years. I might be proven wrong, but I know the land's not sold. This is premature.
I think you've made that. Yeah, Councillor Farrell has a point.
Thank you, Chair. I'm glad I'm not the only sad person that is really excited by this report. I would like to congratulate the report on the addition of a third polling station in Fazeley. It's something my colleague Councillor Hill and I have been campaigning on for a few years. It's had a hiatus of about 8 years and finally it's back in the Longwood car park. Fazeley, as people know, is one long road. At the moment, you've got one at one end, one at the other. So to have one in the middle is really helpful to our residents. So thank you, Chair.
It does say proposed to remain at Fazeley Town Hall in the meantime, doesn't it?
Yes, slightly confusing wording, but I think there's a third one coming.
Okay, fair enough. Councillor Sylvester Hall.
Thank you very much. My turn. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's good to see everybody so exercised on this one. We've already had the point made about where we possibly can avoiding schools, which is one of the things that you would expect me to stand and to comment on. However, it's also appreciating the alternatives and their place in the community to make sure that they are as inclusive as they possibly can be. And I did notice that there was quite a few working men's clubs that were being potentially considered as alternatives. I appreciate that porta cabins and mobile units are more costly, but I do think that recognising the place in the community and the inclusivity should also be a considered factor. Thank you.
Well, we'll leave we perhaps won't go down the working men's club back, what's the word, borough. Councillor Mears was next.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair. I just want to reiterate what Councillor Trent said in regard to using schools. Looking through the reports, sports and social clubs are used, scout huts, churches, community centres, the theatre, sports centres, working men's clubs. And that's just a very brief overview of what's already been recommended for use. When there's such a diverse range of inclusive venues already available for use, I can't see that there's any need for us to entertain using schools of any form whatsoever and causing any kind of disruption to education. Education is already stretched to the max, and taking away any time that allows teachers to pass information on to children is causing a detriment. We can go through the polling process without actually having to use schools if we just look at the range of venues that are available. And I just want to strongly reiterate that we need to avoid using schools. There's no need to use schools going forwards. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, we all probably agree, at least in theory. Councillor Ennis, did you? Councillor D. Ennis. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Chair. Mine's just a little bit different, only a little bit. Mine's more about accuracy than anything else. Like Councillor Taylor, on my register of interests, I'm the treasurer at the Grangemore Working Men Club. And when I saw that comment on there that said that the officers have not heard back from the premises, therefore proposed, I contacted the secretary of the club and said, why haven't we heard back from you? And she said she had. So when she replied back to me, she said that we contacted them back. We said no, because they have an excellent over 50s club on a Thursday, and that's when the date was going to be. But we have offered to use our car park for a mobile station, and we've never heard back. So I'm on about accuracy, because anybody looking at the club there looks like we're not engaging with the council, and the fact is they are. Also, you mentioned about schools. There's a mobile station at a school on the same road. They're offering to put it on their car park. So there is some options there, and I'm just concerned that maybe not all the information is getting back, and I just want to make sure that those minutes are accurate, especially with that as an example, because I know about that one, that they were engaging, they did respond. And yeah,
thank you. Did Councillor Taylor want to say something about work?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just wonder whether I could suggest a changed proposal amendment, so we could amend the recommendations to include the officers recontact all the proposed venues who have not replied before finalising this report, so that we authorise them to do this, so that the report wouldn't need to come back to council.
Okay, thank you. Did Councillor Evans have a point to make? We can
Thank
see.
you, Chair. I just wanted to mention about schools, because I appreciate what is being said, that schools have to be closed, but they don't always have to be closed. The school that I'm Chair of Governors at, we only close off part of the school, and it's only the nursery section that is closed at that time. So maybe sometimes schools can actually look at their building and actually they don't have to close the whole of the school. I think that's important. And of course, schools, the problem is with looking for venues, if we're not going to use mobiles, the fact that the school is often situated in the only place that people can go to vote. So I think the idea of schools is not to use them is a good idea if possible, but there are alternatives for schools if they really wish to just open part.
Okay, thank you. I think that's probably nearly every. Can we, if I can take, can we take account perhaps of Councillor Taylor's suggestion, and also that if we, clearly is quite important that unless we want to oppose it, well, obviously it's up to people if they want to oppose it, but that we're approving this subject to returning to alternative venues, trying to avoid school closures, and further amendment where possible, such as people. So,
thank you, Chair, and appreciate there's been some hot debate on this. I made the fatal error, and I don't mind sharing this with everybody in this chamber, the fatal error of introducing this item at our group meeting by saying, no doubt no one will be interested in this item. How wrong I was. And that included our group meeting as well, by the way. The Chair, really good discussion. I think that the principles which are echoed across the chamber are that we desperately don't want to shut schools where possible. I think I've heard that from all corners of the chamber. We've also heard that perhaps there's still some work to do in where we're trying to shift polling stations away from schools to alternative venues, that perhaps there's still some more work to be done there. The assurance that officers have given us is that work will be undertaken regardless, and this won't need to come back to full council anyway. So I think what I'm asking for is an approval of this paper this evening, in the sense that we've gone through the process, that it's been reviewed, which it is the legal obligation to go through that review process, and perhaps to ask officers, and given the assurances that have given us this evening, to make contact with those venues. If, of course, those venues don't, or if we're unable to reach agreement with those venues, then unfortunately we would revert back to a school or the previous venue. But I think what I'm hearing from around the chamber is that it should be an absolute last resort. So I think, Chair, what I'm asking, although I fully understand and appreciate the points that have been made, can we approve this evening in an understanding that we have gone through that process, which is a legal obligation, by 31st of January, which clearly makes me slightly nervous, and put trust in our officers that on the specifics that we've asked about tonight, they'll put their best foot forward in terms of reaching an agreement with those venues.
and I guess it can be what goes in can be circulated to us, can't it?
Yes, yeah.
You're seconding what? Yes. So in that spirit, the recommendation has been seconded by Councillor Woodward. So all those in favour? Anybody against? Two against. But so we have passed that, but hopefully in the spirit of a sort of provisional agreement. Smashing. Agenda item 12 then, thank you all, is the adoption of the LGA, the Local Government Association Model Code of Conduct, and Councillor John Smith, as Chair of the Members Standard Committee, is going to propose it or speak on this item.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just point out that this is a straight copy, unamended, of the LGA.
Yeah.
Conduct, and just what it says on item 315. The benefit of the model code is ensuring consistency across all local government. Staffordshire County Council have adopted the code, and 6 parishes within the district have also confirmed that they have adopted the code. So I would recommend that we do the same.
So Councillor Smith, you're moving the recommendations, and is its proposal that's common to most councils? Is there a seconder for it? Councillor Anketel. Been seconded. Shall we proceed to a vote? Councillor Ray.
Oh, that's better. Yeah. Obviously, I support it. It's the right thing to do. I was just going to make one slightly wider point, that this code is also important in helping to encourage people in our community to come forward to stand for election. At times, and we all want that, we all want as wider people from the different groups of our society and our community to come forward. And at times, I think people are put off by some of the images of politics, very loud, combative, the online abuse that sometimes happens. I think thankfully here at Lichfield District Council, there is little of that. But it seems important to me that the values of integrity and of mutual respect which run through this code are important, not only in making this a better council so that voices are heard and the best decisions are made, but also so that it can, from people looking in on the outside of this council, it can encourage them to come forward and stand for elections, so we have as wider people from our community coming forward to represent our community.
Thank you. Councillor Norman.
Only to say we haven't had the motions debated yet, and also to say it's a shame the code of conduct can't also apply to social media users outside of this council chamber.
Okay, I think, well, what's on my order is that I think Councillor Smith has moved the recommendations set out in this report. Is the proposal second? Yeah, Councillor Anketel has seconded it, so I take it as having been moved. I don't know. You can fill me in afterwards. Can we proceed to a vote? All those in favour? Be a brave person. Anyone against? Go on. Yeah. No, that's passed unanimously. So thank you very much. Right, clear the page. So we come on now to the item that I hope you've read every page of this. Agenda item 13, the design code, and there's a summary of it. There were long appendix that was very interesting, and Councillor Farrell is going to speak on this item.
Thank you, Chair. Yep, it's very long, nearly 350 pages, so well done for everyone who's read it. I'm sure you all have. This is very exciting for us, Chair, because we are one of the first district councils in the whole country to undertake a district-wide design code. The Lichfield District Design Code has been developed with consultants BDP over the past 2 years. It's been a long old slog, so I want to thank them and the officers for all their hard work in this. The code reflects the various different area types we've got here in the district. So, for example, city centre, the cathedral precinct, suburban, village, urban and employment. And it also guides us of how proposed building development should look on the area type it's located in. It doesn't dictate the architectural style of new developments, but it does encourage high quality design that fits in with its surroundings and contains many specific coding principles which a development must comply with. Now, it's a code which enforces what developers must do rather than should. So it's a very powerful piece of our armoury when it comes to designing good developments here in Lichfield District, and it underpins the decision making, of course, by the planning team. Now, BDP have also used this as an example when attending design code workshops with the Ministry for Housing, Communities and Local Government, and it's been well received there, and also considered a good example of a code. So we are trendsetters here, Chair. Now, It's been informed as well by significant stakeholder engagement. There's been several rounds of consultation from workshops, informal consultation and formal consultation. All the details of where the consultations happened are in this report. It is, of course, a supplementary planning document, an SPD to us, and it means that it can be updated when needed. But that would only be if we wanted to make material changes to it. Then it would need to go out to consultation again. If we want to make small changes, we can do that in-house. It's going to strengthen our local plan as that's currently developing. And while I'm on the point of the local plan, can I make this opportunity for members to be reminded that tomorrow is the deadline for the issues and options consultation. Put it in your diary. So if you haven't yet responded to that, tomorrow is the deadline. I'd also like to reiterate my thanks to all the hard work of everyone that's gone into these documents. It is a big one, and I welcome any questions, and I move the recommendations set out in the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that seconded before we move? Yeah, Councillor Whitehead. Right, I think Councillor Ashton wanted to speak. Thank you.
Councillor Farrell has actually said many of the same things that I was going to say. This design code provides us with a very clear yardstick by which we can measure applications, rather than having to rely on subjective opinions. And I'm pleased, although it has got this level of detail, it's not putting a straitjacket on the design of new developments, which, as the leader once told me, would result in a Georgian theme park. The consultation has resulted in a few musts and mandatory clauses being replaced by should, but these are mercifully few, and it's good to see that calls for a relaxation of the code as a whole were mainly rebuffed. I'm very glad to see Lichfield District being ahead of the curve with regard to the adoption of this document. It provides clarity and vision, and I think that the new local plan and the NPPF will also mesh seamlessly with this. I'm very pleased that significant changes will require consultation, but much, of course, hinges on the definition of the word significant. But with regard to recommendation 2.3, which allows the cabinet member to make changes, other than typographical changes, I would like all these changes to be notified to the planning committee to appear on the agenda of the planning committee for noting, so that the planning committee is aware of any changes which may occur from time to time in the design code. If that could be arranged, I would be very grateful. I'd also appreciate it if, once this is adopted and finalised, if a printed copy of the design code could be made available for members' consultation in the members' room here. And again, I would like to echo Councillor Farrell's thanks and gratitude to all the officers and others who are involved in the preparation of the document. I would like to strongly recommend that 2.1 is adopted along with recommendations 2.2 and 2.3. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Mears, I think I had to say.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to just raise a query about page 95 in the grid at the top of the page. The key theme is secure by design, and the end column for action says the code should be loosened to state design should meet this standard and not must. So I query whether the design code is we must adhere to it, or is it a should adhere to it, and how strong the code is if that flexibility is built in. And the second point I would like to suggest is that the members of the planning committee have a few training sessions on the design code so that they're fully conversant with it as it becomes into force. Thank you.
I don't know if there's a response on that specific. That's a,
Could do it at the end if you want us.
yeah, okay, that's right. And then Councillor Benyon had a.
Yes, I'm very brief. I have actually read the section on rural villages that are relevant to my ward. One of my fellow parish councillors in Clifton Campbell has actually read the whole thing, and we've actually discussed it and debated it at the parish council. So, and the result was that we endorsed it, and we think it's a good document, and it gets my full support. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sylvester Hall, want to say something?
Yeah, thank you. from my perspective on this one, Chair, the level of consultation and engagement, I think, has been particularly effective, and the rigour in which that's been done, we can see in those 300 some pages. But equally, there was two that I highlighted that I thought showed that level of rigour that had gone through in particular. So the first being the biodiversity net gain, and that the design code has now been reflected to change, or has been changed to reflect the national guidance. So I thought that's a responsive element where that advice has been taken on board. And then the other one, which I think is just worth highlighting, is the access to facilities and bus routes, and the request from the developers that they were questioning whether it was possible on all of the schemes, especially those with infrastructure harder for them to provide. And the response was, no change has been made. It is expected that developers show how this will be achieved, and we are looking to achieve sustainable development and for people to use other transport options and active travel, which I think today is particularly helpful when we've also looked to the Link Up bus service, which is on demand. So those, for me, just reflect two particularly pertinent examples of how that advice and the recommendations have been listened to, but equally whether or not they've been adopted. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. So Councillor Powell, sorry, Councillor Booker, then Councillor Marshall.
Thank you, Chair. I do, as a representative of Aurora Ward, I agree with what was said earlier about the consultation with the rural part of this plan, and I fully endorse it. However, I was disappointed in the element on Wickington and north of Tamworth that all of the developments along Coton Lane, that north of Tamworth, that have been extremely contentious in my district, are not really taken into account. Arkle Farm is, and that's massive, but that came after all of the developments along Coton Lane, and they're really contentious in my district. So while I do fully support this, and I do think it's a good thing going forward, I do think there's a few things that are lacking there. Thank you.
Councillor Marshall.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yes, I too welcome this, and I would also like to congratulate all of those officers who've been instrumental in bringing this document to this stage. I have several concerns actually, but the only one I'm going to highlight at the moment, I think, is page 105, air source heat pumps, a particular bête noire of mine. It concerns me that if you having one or two air source heat pumps in sort of not very close proximity is perhaps okay, but when you've got a whole estate and they're all being heated by those, I do believe that the aggregated noise could be quite significant. That does concern me, but that's perhaps for another day. What I would say is that in terms of design code, I was walking around Poundbury in Dorset last year. That place is absolutely amazing, and that is, if you like, a design code on steroids. And Nansleden as well, which is at Newquay, again, is a beautiful example of how if you get the design code right, it can bring a wonderful development to fruition. Both of those, of course, have had the added stimulus and advantage of being the brainchilds of our current king. So, of course, they did have a little bit of an advantage in bringing a delightful townscape. This, I think, design code will be extremely useful for all our planning officers. It's a very, very useful document which they can use as a guide. Having said that, I mentioned the words planning officers. I have a major concern. This is a general concern about planning now. Angela Rayner is being extremely dictatorial, and I do worry that we will not have the resources. Okay, but we will not have the resources to cope with the planning requirements laid out.
This is not relevant to
NPPF.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
Wilcox. Councillor Wilcox wants to speak as well.
Thank you very much, Chair, and I too welcome this new design code. Of course, the proof will be in making sure that developers actually stick to it and do what they say they're going to do. And these are bare minimums. We would expect developers to actually do more. We want to make sure that all the homes that we build now are sustainable and have all the features that make them sustainable to people living in them. I think another good practice is to ensure that whenever we get any large scale developments coming forward, that the ward members are involved at the earliest opportunity, at the earliest stage, because at that time, when they're having discussion with developers, it really is good to have the intel from board members as to exactly what are the issues and concerns that affect their area. So certainly having the opportunity to make sure that any large scale development that comes forward has engagement with the ward members at the earliest opportunity. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Whitehouse.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'd just like to echo all of the commendation of this design code. It's absolutely fantastic, what has been produced. I just wanted to give it a practical slant in that I think it will also help a lot of villages that are writing neighbourhood plans as well. It will help to preserve what that village and that area should look like, particularly in the rural areas and the suburban areas as well. So I think it will have a very good practical use in that context as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I think Councillor Farrell, there was Councillor Booker's point, there was the heat pumps point, and there was Councillor Mears, wasn't there? About
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thanks for all the positive comments as well. First, Councillor Ashton, thanks for your comments. Happy to have a printed copy. Might cost a lot, there's 340 pages there, but happy to have a printed copy if that's what we want. Councillor Mears, I just want to set your expectations on this. Thanks for the point. In that instance, the should, not the must, it actually applies to the safer building designs. Basically, this is a code to keep people safer at home. So in terms of like their internal security, alarms, that kind of stuff. So the reason that went from a should, a must to a should, was because they've got some set standards across the board. So it's not about the actual building, it's about the home safety. And I think it was just to go in with the guidelines. So it doesn't mean that the musts are killed off across the whole of the document. It's just that specific bit. Hopefully that puts your mind at rest. Thank you for the comments. Councillor Whitehouse, just on yours, I agree. It's hopefully going to be very helpful to parishes putting together their neighbourhood plans. Hopefully we can use this as a blueprint going forward. And, you know, again, to Councillor Benyon's point, and well done to your parish councillor who's read all of it. I think it's going to be really helpful to parish councils. Councillor Booker, completely take your point. I would welcome any small changes to come my way. I think that's really important. I think Councillor Cox also brought some small changes my way before the council meeting as well. So if you've got anything that you think could be changed that doesn't come under the material bracket, please send them over to me. Definitely happy to work with Councillor Wilcox and any ward members, and thanks to everyone else for their positive comments. I don't think I missed anyone. Heat pumps, thanks for the comment.
Did Councillor Salter have a brief relevant?
Yes, thank you. I'm just grabbing a mic that works. It's on a practical subject really, and that is in respect of printed copies. Either can a more printer friendly version be available? There are huge blocks of nothing but purple on many pages, and if you just went black and white you just have a huge block of black. Or can the facility of printed copies be made available to parish councils for that purpose?
Okay,
thank you.
They'll take that on board, I'm sure. So we've had it seconded, haven't we? So can we all vote in favour of the design code, or against for that matter? Vote how you like. Yeah. Right, yeah, but thank you. I think anyone against? Okay, even me. Lovely. Right, thank you. Agenda item 14, the changing room refurbishment at Burntwood Leisure Centre. Councillor Strachan.
Thank you, Chair. I'll keep this brief because I know that I'm not the main event tonight. Occasionally, in the course of the council's financial year, an opportunity to deliver new projects comes up, which were not in the original medium-term financial strategy and which we choose to fund from within that. This is exactly one of those. An opportunity has arisen to refurbish the changing rooms at Burntwood Leisure Centre for a cost of £50,000. That cost is entirely met from the Leisure Centre Compensation Reserve, which is for the purpose of maintenance of our existing leisure centres. And so I propose that an amendment be made to the MTFS to permit that project to come forwards. And I'm sure when he duly seconds me, Councillor Smith can put some flesh on the bones if council did want it. I so move.
So is that proposal seconded?
It's seconded by myself, thank you, Chair, yes.
Okay. Councillor Woodward has a comment.
I think Councillor Ennis has got direct experience of using the leisure centre. I'd say this is very much welcome, but it isn't the whole story. It's not going to be adequate to complete those changing room refurbishments, which is going to cost something more like 250,000. So yes, I welcome the recommendation. I will certainly vote for it, but this isn't the end of the story. As the chief executive knows, I constantly lobbying about ensuring that while we're putting lots of money into the new leisure centre, we also need to make sure that Burntwood Leisure Centre is also up to standard for the residents of our district. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Ennis.
Rarity, isn't it? Councillor Woodward has already kind of said what I said. It would say it's brilliant that this money is coming in. My daughter was a frequent user of the leisure centre until 2 weeks ago because she can swim fine now, so we're past that. And some work's already been done in these shower blocks, which has been amazing. And I know the staff, and I want to praise the staff at the leisure centre. They do go around cleaning it all, making it all as great as they can. But as we know, if you've been there, especially some of the officers who've been there, it doesn't look great in certain areas because there's a Freedom Leisure who we had in before didn't keep up to the standards that we wanted. Lockers need repairing. There's a lot going on. So I'm grateful that I'm happy that we're getting some money towards it, but obviously there's still a lot more, and hoping at some point down the line we can start putting in a bit more to the leisure centre so that we can have 2 brilliant leisure centres in Lichfield District that anyone would be quite happy to use. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got now Councillor and Andy Smith wanted to speak. No? Or have you changed your mind? Councillor Pullen?
No, I'd like to. Thank you, Chair. I just want to actually say I'm in complete agreement with Councillor Woodward and Councillor Ennis. And I asked the exact same question in Cabinet when we talked about this. This amount of money is a temporary improvement while we have that money to get going. It's to basically allow the use of the dry side changing for the, and that's in much better condition. But you have my assurance, both of you and the whole council, that I'm pushing, and we will find that money to do that proper job, because I think it needs about another £400,000 to do that proper job on that wet side changing. So,
Councillor Pullen was going to say.
Thank you, Chair. It was just to share a short little anecdote, and I entirely agree with Councillor Dennis and Woodward about the state of Burntwood Leisure Centre. Everyone will no doubt be aware that I've spent a fairly painful 5 years in trying to spec a new leisure centre post Fiery Grange, and one of the frequent things that we hear from Lichfield residents is that they wish they had a leisure centre as nice as the one in Burntwood, and that has been a wonderful thing to hear. But absolutely, entirely concur with Councillor Ennis that we want 2 brilliant leisure centres for the district that all of our residents can enjoy.
Okay. So can we move to a vote? Yeah, all those in favour of this interim sum for Burntwood? Okay, thank you. Anyone against? Super. Right. Agenda item 15 is updates to the Constitution, which I understand. Oh no. Yeah, we are going to vote on them as recommended.
They're for noting.
They're for noting. Oh, my thing says yes. These are for noting because they're quite just technical things about responsibility, aren't they?
Thank you, Chair. And I won't make the fatal error of saying this is a boring paper, just in case. But hopefully this is just a bit of housekeeping to ensure the Constitution is kept tidy, which reflects the slight amendment in change of cabinet and officer functions in the council. It's really just for noting to reflect the changes that have taken place. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I think there may be 1 or 2 questions about things that aren't in it. Councillor Braga.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I've got no problem with any of the issues there. It's as you say, it's what's not in it. When I was first elected, there was a problem in Stowe with planning call-ins, because the councillor who had done the call-in wasn't re-elected, and we were told that call-in had therefore fallen. So therefore, those residents couldn't be represented. I understood at the time that we were told that would be looked at and there would be an update to the constitution. We're now a year and a half on. My question really is I'm not sure to who, is when can we expect that update to the constitution?
Could we, yeah, it'd be useful, wouldn't it, to have. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Braga, for the question. This obviously is just to tidy up about functions, cabinet members, etc. A full review of the constitution is now scheduled for the beginning of 2025. That will be coming forward shortly. Not entirely sure the current status of that, but it is. I've seen the draft paper that is coming forward, and that some others may have done as well. The reality is the existing constitution has evolved, if I was being kind, over a number of years, and frankly does need rewriting from the ground up to ensure that it's fit for purpose and reflects some of the nuances that you highlight there, Councillor Braga. So early 2025, it is on our agenda, and it is going to be working its way through this council next year.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Norman.
Mum, just some clarification. It's on page 452, or it was. Now it's on page 454, which is the Director of Finance, Regulation and Enforcement. And I understand this is an update of the job description, if you like, but there seems to be an awful lot of work involved here. But so, how long has that been changed? As I must have missed it clearly. Just it seems as a it's a good bloke. I know him, but it seems excessive.
The duties.
I'll need to get back to you on that, Councillor Norn. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Mears.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just raise a practical point? If this is going to be rewritten from the ground up in 2025, do we need to make any decision on this now at the end of 2024? Thank you.
Well, we might.
Yes.
Well now.
So for absolute clarity, this is in our constitution. We have a scheme delegation which sets out what powers and authorities, responsibilities, etc., delegated to whom from cabinet portfolios down. Because of some changes that took place in cabinet over the summer, this is being updated to reflect those changes, just so that it is accurate in terms of within the existing constitutional structure. The ground up change of the constitution will take a number of months. We'll perhaps be sat here in a year's time approving those if we're lucky. So absolutely this needs to be approved this evening in the sense it's for noting, because it's already taken place.
Okay, thank you. So this was for noting, so we can duly note it and move on to agenda item 16, motions on notice. And the first motion is page 459 of the sheet of the pack, and it's been proposed by Councillor Ray.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so I'm rising to propose this motion. What I'd like to say at the start to Council is that this motion is about two fundamentals. It's about the Council doing what it can to improve the environment for our residents. And it's also about making decisions which are consistent with the policies and the strategic objectives that of this Council, in particular, the motion where we declared a climate change emergency, and the 2050 strategy, which we spent a lot of time on in this council and we have recently issued. Fundamentally, I say that this council should not in 2024 be building a new leisure facility to last the next generation that has gas in it, has a carbon-based energy source going into it. I don't think that's right. And I don't think that's what our residents are expecting. And we need to change the design I put forward of this centre back to what was originally planned, which was an all-electric source of heating, involving air source heat pumps. Now, just to give the background, the council obviously has approved the construction of the new leisure centre here in Lichfield at Stitchbrook Park.
And the original design standard, which was approved by the task group set up by the Overend Scrutiny Committee, was for BREEAM Excellent, which is the highest standards of sustainability and the highest environmental standards when it comes to construction. And that meant all electric, but subsequently that decision was changed so that it was a hybrid form of energy source, gas and electric. And all electric was consistent with the motion that this council brought on the 10th of December 2019 declaring a climate change emergency. It was proposed by Councillor Norman and it was passed by this council. And I'll just remind the members what that motion said, because it's important as we're making this decision tonight. It said, Lichfield District Council recognises that a climate change emergency exists and in consequence resolves to take this into account as a factor in all future policy and spending decisions of the council. And then recently we've had the 2050 strategy, which says that the council's internal carbon reduction action plan sets our plan as a district council to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050. And the report and that strategy document also says that when we've consulted with our residents, 96% said that the environment was an important issue for them. And also in that document, it says that the ambition of this council is to be the greenest district in the country. And now we are potentially going to be making a decision of putting gas into this leisure centre. That is just not consistent. So if I could just talk about the timings and how we've got to this position. So in May this year, the budget for the new leisure centre was approved by this council to £11.3 million. And at that meeting, the council, the council's meeting resolved that the task group, would look into certain aspects of the budget to see if value engineering and savings could be made. There was a report produced for the task group, and that met on the 21st of August this year. And it did identify certain savings, but it also increased certain other costs. And in order to keep the budget within the 1.3, which had been approved by council, it moved away from the all electric to a hybrid gas and electric form of energy to power the centre. And that meant the objective of achieving the highest standards of sustainability and environmental standards, BREEAM Excellent, would no longer be met. It's important, so that was the August meeting. It's important to say that that change was made without the consultation of the task group. And the task group at that meeting therefore said, we need to have a further report. We need to have a report about what the cost would be to revert back to having an all electric form of energy source involving air source heat pumps. And then that report was produced in September of this year. And there's been no subsequent meeting of the task group. Now, looking at the numbers, that report said that the budget for the leisure centre would need to increase by £338,000. It does say that the total cost for reverting is £545,000, which would take the budget up to 11.6 million. 11.3 million had been approved, and hence the need for a budget increase of the £338,000. So when you look at the financials, I appreciate they are significant. The increase in the budget by £338,000 is a significant amount of money. But I say this. Firstly, it is 2.99% of the total budget. This is a project. This is a facility that's going to last, and for our community here for the next 20, 30 years. And we need to get it right at the outset. We need to get it right now. Also, all electric is more than just about the environment, which is a very important issue. It's about energy security. As we know, in this country, we are in a direction where more and more energy is being generated by renewables. And so if we have a leisure centre, which is powered by all electric, we are creating energy security for our leisure centre, and which is a responsible management decision to be made by this council. Also on the financials, I've had various discussions as I prepared for this motion with officers and with other councillors. What I haven't been told is we can't do this financially. It's not a responsible financial decision. And the finance director of finance's report makes various points, but doesn't say that this is not a decision that should be made financially. We can make this decision, and it's about what the priorities are for this council. And then the other point on the financials is that the all-electric form of design, it generates members a savings of £68,000 a year. It is, although there are some additional costs, it generates then, as you go forward, it costs £68,000 less per year to heat and to power the leisure centre. So before I summarise, I just want to make two other points. The report, if you see, which went to the task group, but there was never a task group meeting subsequent to that, went to the task group. It sets out what the replacement costs are for the hybrid system, the gas and electric, or the pure electric system. And the report says that they would need to be replaced, whichever way it is, in 2039. And it says that the cost of replacing the all-electric would be £473,000 more than if it was a hybrid gas and electric system. I say, members, you should place, and this council should place very little reliance on those numbers. We are talking about replacement in 2039, 15 years hence. And it is simply impossible to know what the energy landscape is going to be then. Gas prices might have escalated. And one thing that might well happen is as the technology develops, the cost of air source heat pumps and their replacement will have reduced. And the other point I just want to make is this motion, if members of this motion does not go against any settled decision of the task group. As I say, after that report in September, which set out the costs of reverting, there was no further task group meeting. The report was not brought to ONS. It was not brought back to full council before today. So now, members, we have the opportunity, have the chance to make this decision today. So in summary, there are two fundamental points for members to consider in making this decision to increase the budget for the leisure centre by £338,000. Remember, it will generate annual savings in running that centre of £68,000 a year. And secondly, it will reduce the council's carbon footprint, achieving BREEAM Excellent, which is consistent with our stated policies and our stated strategy of this council. And that increase, £338,000, is small in comparison to a project that's going to last for the next generation, 2.99%. And that, I say, is a price that we should be prepared to pay to ensure that this centre is built to the highest environmental and sustainable standards for the future of our community. And then finally, I just say, here on this council, in many ways, there is little we can do to solve the global issues of climate change. But members, when here today, we have a specific measure we can take to put an electric source and not gas into our leisure centre, we should make the right one. And I urge members to vote for this motion. And Chair, I'd just like to say that when we come to vote,
15 seconds left.
when we come to vote, I'd like to ask for a name vote, and I know Councillor Woodward was something that she would support. Thank you.
Okay, now, thank you very much, Councillor Ray. Is that motion seconded? Councillor, no? Well, can we just check if we need to have it seconded? Councillor Trent has seconded the motion.
Thank you, Chair. I'm very happy to second, reserve my right to speak.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. So, Councillor Mears, you wanted to speak on the motion?
Thank you very much. Good evening. I can see the level of work that's gone into this and how passionate you feel about this. I'm keen to endorse it, but I just have a couple of questions I wonder if you can help with. I wonder, are there any examples of other leisure centres around the UK that are running solely electric heating? And if you might have any information on the ongoing maintenance costs that we can use as a point of comparison as well. Thank you.
Okay,
Point of clarification, please.
Yeah.
Can I ask whether councillor Trent was seconding the motion or whether he was seconding the proposal for a named
He
vote?
was. I think I think he was seconding the motion.
So the proposal.
So,
for a
but I
named
think
vote has
are we
been
going
seconded.
to? I was in my head. Perhaps should have said that we would deal with that separately.
Okay.
I don't know if that's. I should take advice, not leave it in my head.
No, that's very lovely. It can be a name vote as long as the majority of the members are in favour or the leader of the principal minority calls for it.
Yeah. Okay. So yes, no, I understand. So we'll decide that perhaps after we.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So are there any? Councillor Smith wanted to speak, I think. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I did want to speak on this. I'll be quite honest with Councillor Ray. The points you raised, I absolutely thought and raised all the same points at the end of the value engineering exercise. Obviously, I was going to ask the same questions about why we moved from the concept of the full electric system to the gas hybrid system, and the difference between us and what I'll try and spell out here is I was completely satisfied that the costs of the difference between the two, and your costs are slightly wrong. I'm just going to put a bit more meat on the bones on that. The cost between the two are different, and I wasn't fully satisfied about the difference in the CO2 and the energy emissions of the two systems. And yes, this council did commit in 2019 to, and I quote, take climate change into account as a factor in all future policy and spending decisions. We did say that. I completely agree. And I can assure council we have most definitely taken that into account when we looked at the heating system for the leisure centre. As a reminder, I had to come to this council to ask for an extra 1.3 million for the leisure centre project, and the council quite correctly recommended that while they endorse that 1.3 million pound figure, they also asked that we go back and see what we can value engineer, how we can save money on that leisure centre and bring that back to an ONS task group, which we did, and those results came back to the task group in I think it was August, and one of those things was a switch from the full electric ASHP